Hello, my name is Jim. Welcome to my booktube channel about books and reading and stuff. In this video I want to look at my December wrap-up about the books that I read in December. At the beginning of December, on my Goodreads total, I had read 41 books out of a total of 50 towards my challenge. To hit my challenge, I'd have to read another 9 books. In December, I read 9 books. 4 of these were physical books, 3 of these were e-books. The other 2 were audio books that I listened to on YouTube, and these are kind of cheating. The first book I read was Stone Mattress. This is a collection of 9 short stories that are connected to aging, about the gradual decay of the body and the mind. The first 3 stories are linked. We have a fantasy writer called Constance, and she's getting old and she's hearing the voice of her dead husband asking her to go out. And then we have the second story is Gavin, which is connected. Back in their student days, Gavin and Constance were boyfriend and girlfriend, but Gavin cheated on her with Marjorie. Marjorie's story is the third one in this, so it's interesting. The first 3 stories are connected. The other 6 stories of the 9 stories are not connected at all, apart from this idea that the people are aging. The protagonists are not aging gracefully. There's a lot of grudges, a lot of revenge, there's murder, there's all sorts. These stories are not subtle, and they show varying levels of meanness that people can show, particularly when they have a grudge to bear. The title story, Stone Mattress, comes from stromatite, which is a fossilized stone found in Greenland, and it plays a big role in that story, Stone Mattress, when 2 people on a cruise find that they have past history together from many years ago. Margaret Atwood's writing is brilliant. She's maybe my favourite living author. This is a very acerbic collection of stories, acerbic like vinegar. You'll enjoy this. The second book I read was Quiet Until the Thaw by Alexandra. This is a story set in the Lakota tribe over a number of generations. Our main characters are Rick, overlooking horse, and You Choose Watson. You Choose Watson got his name in a strange way. The Indian looked at Mina, generations of defeat in her eyes. Well, Mina said again. The Indian looked at the cowboy. What should we call him, she asked. Elijah Watson had been trying with mixed results to absent himself mentally from the scene for some time, and having finally succeeded to some degree, he was not about to get pulled back into the room by the presence of a squalling kid. He shrugged. I don't know. You choose, he said. You choose, the sore-hearted Indian whispered, and sank against a greasy towel beneath her head. She gave a filtered smile and nodded. You choose, she said again. Yeah. That's a good name for a child. Alexandra Fuller is not Native American. She spent 3 months with the Lakota tribe researching this book. She was born in England. She grew up in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. Her parents, by her own admission, are white supremacists. How much authority she has for writing about Lakota people, I'm not sure. I have some problems with this. It's an interesting read. It's a quick read. The third book I read was really a cheat. This was I Am the Doorway by Stephen King. This was a short story I listened to on YouTube, on audiobook. This is just 30 minutes long. It's about an astronaut who goes further into space than anybody else and comes back with more than he bargained for. His hand is becoming like this doorway, this portal to an alien race, and it's an interesting story. I think I read it before many years ago in the collection Night Shift. Then I read Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson. This is the number 2.5 in the Stormlight archive. This is my first experience of Brandon Sanderson. I hadn't heard of Brandon Sanderson until I came onto BookTube, and now I'm hearing his name in many quarters. He's very popular in the fantasy genre. Edgedancer I bought because it was the cheapest book of his I could find for Kindle. It was under $2, which is a good reason for me to try it. And so this is the story of Lift, who's a young girl who's about 12 or 13, and she has a spren, which is some strange kind of creature that puts out vines for her which she can climb up, and apparently most other people can't see it. Lift is very much thinking about her stomach all the time and where she can get pancakes and things like this. It's a very funny book. It's very amusing. The interaction between her and her spren, who she calls a void bringer, is very amusing. And she needs the energy for her awesomeness. She is able to slide in a very slippery way across paths and out of people's grasp. I enjoyed this. Araby was the biggest cheat of the lot for this. Araby is a short story by James Joyce. I listened to this on audiobook, which was just 13 minutes long, and I can't remember much about it apart from it being a boy who wanted to meet a girl in some marketplace called the Araby. Then I got a free book on Kindle. I like free books on Kindle. This was Murder in Saint-Remy by Susan Kiernan-Lewis. This was a cosy murder mystery set in Provence amongst some expats. Maggie is an American expat from Atlanta, Georgia, and she is investigating a mysterious death. In the story, before we get a death, we get a birth. Very appropriate for Christmas time. A young teenage mother, who's 14, gives birth not in a stable, but in a shed, to a baby daughter. This was an enjoyable read. I'd only give it 3 stars. I finally read some Charlotte Bronte this month. I tried to read Jane Eyre in one day. You can see the video about that here. It's an interesting story. It's a story of a governess who falls in love with her employer, but there's a lot more than that. There's about the school days. There's about the difficulties of growing up poor and educated. There's a lot in this book, and for a classic book, it's quite easy to read. It's set it's a first-person narrative. I'm glad I read it. Then I read the third and final book of the Remnant series by Margaret Pinard. Margaret Pinard is a booktuber from Oregon. This is the story of a family from the Highlands of Scotland, from the island of Mull, who come to Nova Scotia and try to eke out a living in Nova Scotia. This follows the 2 youngest children. There's Sheena, who goes back to Scotland with her husband Gordon, and she finds the injustices she was escaping from 10 years previously are still happening in Scotland, and she's in a dilemma about what to do about these. Then we have the youngest son, Alistair, who wants to study in Nova Scotia, but is barred from studying because he's not Church of England, and it's about the prejudice he encounters there. There's also the rest of the family. There's his brother Neil, who's brooding. He's recently bereaved and he's having a hard time coping with his feelings, and his daughter Mary doesn't know what's going on. I really enjoyed the Remnant series. The characters are well drawn. I'd recommend it to anyone. I like the Keening, the first book of the series, the best of the series, but it's all a very good series. I really enjoyed it. The final book I read in December was No Logo by Naomi Klein. Now, each of these chapters would be worth a video in itself. There's so much information here about globalization and about how branding has become ubiquitous. There's 4 sections: no space, no choice, no jobs, no logo. It's about how advertising is getting into every public space, in schools, in libraries. People meet now not in the city square, but in Starbucks, in Barnes and Noble, in these malls, and there's no room there for protest, no room for demonstration. There's less choice because everything is controlled by these big corporations. Corporations like Walmart can undercut any independent retailers in their region by just the economies of scale. If you ask what Levi's do, people would say they make jeans, but they don't make jeans. Not anymore. They close most of their factories making jeans, and now they subcontract to manufacturers in third world export zones where there's the minimum wage for mostly young women who work there. There's bad conditions of pollution. There's minimal taxes. It's a tragic state of affairs. There's been a movement against this, the No Logo movement and the anti-Nike movement against all this globalization. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know I collect little cars. There used to be lots of these little cars that were made in Europe. This is a Corgi Rover. It was made in Great Britain. Today, Corgi exists, the brand exists, but it's made in China. Matchbox, my favourites. These were made in England. Today, they're made in Thailand. There is no manufacturing of toy cars in Europe at all. It's all moved to Southeast Asia. Hot Wheels, made in Malaysia, but they also make cars in China and Indonesia and Thailand. Mattel is one of the brands highlighted in here. They do everything to protect their brand. They tried to sue the singer of Barbie Girl for this song, which reflected Barbie in a non-family friendly way, but the RCA had the money to fight Mattel's lawsuit. Speaking of diecasts, here in Georgia we finally have some new Hot Wheels for the first time since the pandemic, some 2021 Hot Wheels, and I treated myself to 5 Hot Wheels models this month. The first was from the old stock, this Nissan Fairlady Z. I always like the Nissan Fairlady Z or the Datsun 240Z. This was a dream car from my childhood. The first of the new batch was this Toyota AE86 Sprinter Trueno, which is in the Falcon tyres livery. Then this is Luke Skywalker's Landspeeder from the Star Wars series. I like this so much I got 2 of them. One will stay in its blister and one is loose. And finally I got this Triumph TR6. Triumph was a British brand of cars which has long since disappeared. It became part of Austin Rover. Austin Rover were bought by some Chinese concern and now it's no more. So that was December's wrap up. 9 books, or really 7 books I guess, and 5 model cars for my collection. If you like this video, you can like and subscribe below, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.